alhamdulillah alatendo kola UDP la alfa wolo ya da bosanga bango mo sonde ma wodum manke kansenti ala ya wol sonde ma di go be la kulo sanja mane tambe de man sayangi nola mariana ni le mansi tumba usen dabo di go be la kulo nya go be la kulo nanna be la kulo mana ba man sayata kumo be le moy nya ko ita man sayana do yo ne ta man sayana da ko le ba kulo Gambia for the Kiri. Adwa Fasiwa, Gambia for the Munam coming Makeri, Nabankoka, Adwa Fasiwa. Me a morning is Santa Meda Sinduna, Munanisi, and Juna, then no more the Hada, Yakur be the Kela, income face a body, Bari Mambori, Loya Kura Miri, Alayena, Tina Kamakami, the Fasa, Uzenia, Kasora, the Muni, the Baria, Funded. Well, the Munas about it, when I beat it all, I imagine Mansayata, Punum Koye Buseno, Punu Koye Loya, Mi Comandela, Samai Sakomansa.
So much, Honorable Yakuma Jete, for that insight. You've delved into a very complex issue that has been hampering the advancement, most especially the political sphere of this country. Men have been leading the political dispensation for quite a while, and of course, we need to have our counterparts, the women also coming in, and deliver, as she earlier mentioned,
Dr Lamin Manneh, and to all of you from the student wing, and all of the people attending here, particularly the high table. I thank you for this opportunity to come and have these exchanges with you. And I tell you from the outset, fasten your seat belts, because I'm very passionate about these points. So it's going to take some time, okay? The UDP, we constantly criticize the government for all that is going wrong. And that is our role. We need to tell them what is going wrong because they have been employed by the Gambian people to do a job and they are paid to do that job. If they fail to do that job, it's up to us to keep their feet to the fire. So we must do that, and we must do it in a way which will ensure that they do their part of the work. They are paid to do that. But in our criticisms, we do not just end up criticizing the government for what it's doing wrong or what it's not doing. We tell them what we would do when we come to power. Because it's all very well to criticize all the time, but it's even better if you can propose your own solutions to how you think this country should go. And that was why we developed our manifesto and our 5-point agenda. The 5-point agenda is an extraction from the manifesto. So the 5-point agenda is an emanation of the manifesto of the party. So in case you haven't read that manifesto, I would encourage all of you very strongly, go and read the manifesto and get the 5-point agenda and understand what it's all about. In the manifesto, we have 16 priority areas, but we cannot deal with all of that at the same time. So we extract the 5 key points that we need to deal with quickly to have tangible results on the ground. And those 5 points are what UDP would start by implementing from day one, from 2026 or early 2027 when we get to power. Because for me, it's not if we get to power, it's when we get to power. Because we're going to get to power in 2026. I keep telling that, and the NPP guys lose their minds about it. But that's the point. We're going to get to power in 2026 because there will be no more hanky-panky with the results. There will be no more cheating us out of our victory. So we're going to take this country in 2026, and we will implement this 5-point agenda from day one in office. 5-point agenda is what we're going to implement from day one in office. These are the key priorities of this of the UDP, going to be the key priorities of the UDP government. But maybe I should say that in addition to those 5 points, we might have cross-cutting agenda, which will be cutting right across what we do. And those could include corruption control, or fighting corruption and fighting ethnic division. These have become 2 major pandemics in this country. Whatever we do, we won't go far if we cannot control corruption. Impunity has set in this country big time. And unless you can put an end to impunity, you will not stop corruption. Because people will continue doing because they know they are fine. If you put an end to impunity, corruption will stop. If we stop ethnic division in this country also, we prepare the country for an economic takeoff. Because while they've introduced these divisions, and we are fighting amongst ourselves on ethnic, religious, and regional grounds, they are robbing us blind. So we concentrate on fighting while they rob us and we don't see it. So we have to have those two as cross-cutting agenda in whatever we do. Our 5-point agenda is centered around, as we say, 5 key points. The first one being youth empowerment and employment. The second one is education, skills development, and training. And the third one is agriculture, food security, and nutrition. That's the third point on our agenda. The fourth point is health promotion and the containment of pandemics, health infrastructure, health structures. And the fifth one is energy and digital economy. These are our 5 points on the agenda. And these are the 5 key areas in which UDP is going to devote all its attention because they are the underlying factors which will make it possible for us to do what we require to do for this country. So to make it easy for people to remember, I tend to put it this way. The UDP, for the Gambian people, I tell you, the UDP will educate your children. Once you have children, UDP will educate them. That's our education, skills development, and training part. The UDP will feed your kids. We educate them, we provide them food and quality food. That's our agriculture, nutrition section of the 5-point agenda. We will make sure that your kids have good health. So we educate them, we feed them, we provide them good health, and we get them jobs. We get them jobs or we allow them to create their own jobs. So these are key. So if your kids can have good education, if they can have good food to grow properly, they can have good health care to take care of them. When they finish education, they will have employment. So the 4 points of the agenda are covered by those. And the fifth one is what? Once we educate your kids, we feed them, we provide them good health care, we provide them employment. So you have the 4 points of the agenda. The fifth one is what? We make sure that they live a good life. That is what? We provide them with energy they need to do whatever they need to do because you cannot have any development without energy. So we provide them with energy and digital economy, the internet, all the rest. That will allow them to live a good life, to live a resourceful life, and to be able to invest in whatever they need to invest in this country to move forward. So these are the key 5 points for you to remember so that you can easily remember our 5-point agenda. Educate your children, feed your children, provide them with good health care, provide them with education for employment, and then provide them with energy and digital infrastructure for their development and well-being. So these are our 5-point agenda. Now, if we go back to our education component, we intend to make sure that education is available to all the Gambians in this country and all people from West Africa as well, ECOWAS, because we have the free movement of goods, persons, and services, but to be able to make it available to those people too, but of course the Gambians first. We will make sure education is available to you. We have generations of Gambians who have been sacrificed by poor education infrastructure and poor education personnel. We need to have good, well-trained teachers to be able to teach our children and provide them with the education and skills they need to either get good employment, good, well-paid employment, or they create their own jobs. That cannot go without a sound government policy which is well articulated with the rest of the development objectives of this country. Because whatever you do, if you do not have a good, well-trained population, you are heading for failure. The poor education will provide you with poor doctors who will kill your kids in hospitals. It will provide you with poor engineers who will build bad structures for you which will collapse. It will provide you with poor lawyers who will not be able to defend your cases in court. It will provide you with poor personnel in every sector of the economy, and you will not go anywhere. If you want to destroy a country, start by destroying its education system. Once you destroy the education system, that country is doomed. So we must make sure that our education system can take us where we need to go. And that starts with the public schools. All of us sitting here are lucky to have been able to go to good public schools. I am what I am today because the Gambia government paid for my education from primary to secondary school. And I got a government scholarship to go to university. So if I stand here today before you to talk to you, it's because the Gambia government provided me that opportunity. And we have to make sure that that opportunity is available to every young Gambian in this country. Education is the equalizer. It gives everybody a fighting chance. If you do not have that, you don't have a fighting chance. And if you look at the current trend of results in this country, the past grade 12 examinations, 90% of public school students failed. 90%. Go look at the statistics. The government doesn't talk about this, but you need to know. 90% of public school students failed. 91% of private sector school students passed. See this? Almost the same, 90-91. Here 90% failed in public schools, 91% in private schools passed. So what do you get? You get a social reproduction. Those of us who can pay for our kids to go to private schools, they will come out and they will continue the positions we hold, and they will be the ones running this country. And the rest of the kids who go to public schools do not have a fighting chance. And that is not acceptable. If you do not have that fighting chance in public schools, I wouldn't be standing here today talking to you. So we've got to make sure that is available to every kid in this country. So that is one of our key priority areas in the UDP, making sure that every young Gambian, and by young I mean from kindergarten to university, has access to good quality education and affordable as well. Once you get that, you are ready to enter this active life with a good chance of succeeding. Government will not be able to provide jobs for everybody. That's the Ethiopia we know, and it's not going to happen. So if you cannot be provided jobs by government, we need to give you skills training, or skills training should be available to you to make sure that you can start your own jobs. Not everybody is meant to go to academic training. I keep giving this example anytime I talk. Tough, of Tough Global. Tough was my schoolmate in Gambia High School. Tough was one of the few people, they were the first batch of Gambian students who studied woodwork, etc. in Gambia High School. And people were sometimes making fun of them. He's one of the most successful Gambians today because he had good skills training, he believed in himself, he followed his passion, and he got to where he got to today. We can have many more Toughs in this country. Tough should be an example for many young Gambians in this country. And if you have many Toughs in this country, we are going places. And that is through skills development. You do not have to go and do a PhD in economics, law, whatever. You can do something different and still succeed, and succeed very well. So the skills development component is going to be for ensuring that every Gambian who chooses not to go to the academic courses of theoretical education can have practical training in whichever sector they like. The University of Science and Technology, which has been set up, I applaud it The only reservation I have is that I hope that government can channel enough resources into that university and to UTG. Because there's no point creating a university if you're not going to be able to fund it because you're going to produce substandard graduates. And that does not help anybody. So I hope the government supports both universities and provides them adequate resources, human and material, to take students to where they need to go. In addition to that training, the UDP will build skills development centers all across the country. So every region will have a skills development center. Some would be in agriculture, some would be in agriculture, the general agriculture, some would be in different sections of agriculture like horticulture, animal husbandry, etc. We will have areas where we'll do metal work and woodwork, etc. Areas will do construction, etc. So what we will do in IT sectors. So we'll have skills development centers in all the regions so that people can specialize in areas where they want to specialize. So this is very important in our agenda, and we want to make this clear to everybody. This is what we intend to do. That is our education and skills development, skills training and development. Thank you. The second point of our agenda, I've mentioned it briefly already, is the employment and empowerment and employment. We need to make sure that when Gambians go to school, the curriculum is adapted to the needs of the country so that the students we graduate come out of university employable with the required skills and academic knowledge they need to get employment. We need to make sure that they have the adequate training to meet the needs of the job market in the country or outside the country. You see, if you have the proper training, the proper education, if you cannot have a job in this country, you can always move to anywhere within ECOWAS, settle in there, and develop yourself. Because we have the free movement of goods, persons, services, and capital within the ECOWAS region. So you should be able to move to any ECOWAS region and make a living there. Going back to my tough example, Tough was in Nigeria. His biggest estates were developed in Nigeria. So you can do that too. We can have many more Toughs all over West Africa. And the icing on the cake is that now we have the African Continental Free Trade Area, which has been in place for 2 years now, which will allow us to produce here. If you are a guy in agriculture, you can produce whatever you need to produce here and export it all over Africa because the African Continental Free Trade Area allows you to do that. But we have to be able to produce to be able to export, which we are not doing right now. So we put in place the facilities and structures which will allow our youth to be able to produce locally, feed the local market, and export. But I will come to that when we get to agriculture, so I will reserve that for the moment. So our youth should be able to either get good employment in the Gambia or in the sub-region or international institutions. I was working for the African Development Bank and we had over 20 Gambians working there. You have them in the UN, you have them everywhere, but you don't need to go out there. We can have extremely well-paid jobs here in the Gambia and keep the skills here and do whatever we need to do. Those who want to move out can move out. The options is what I'm talking about. Gambians should have that option because they have good education and good training to work in this country or go work outside. That is an option that should be open to them. It's a globalized world now. So that is the second point on our agenda. The third point is agriculture, nutrition, and food security. But I will save that for the last, for the final bit, because that's where the key development ingredients are. So I'll save that for the last point. The fourth point is what? Health, pandemic containment. We should be able to have in this country health facilities that can cater for all Gambians who are in need of health care. What do we have right now? We have a lot of health structures being built, not enough health personnel, not enough medication, or sometimes not even any medication at all, not enough facilities. You have a hospital in Banjul Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, with only one functional ambulance for a referral hospital, where the scanners were often out of order, the dialysis machines were often out of order, etc., etc. It's a litany of woes for those hospitals. And to compound it all, what do we hear? Recently, we had the chair of the board exposing all the crazy things that were happening in that hospital. But that shouldn't surprise us, because the minister himself, Samate, stood in parliament and said his ministry is infested with corruption. He should have been fired that day. He should have been fired that day. If you are the minister, you come to parliament and you tell the Gambian people, my ministry is infested with corruption, you don't deserve to be minister. He should have been fired that day. He should have, in fact, he should have had the decency to resign, not even to be fired. Because if you cannot handle that, you have no business being there. But that is what's happening in this country to our health sector. And what do we get? They go to parliament, they vote for themselves. This current budget, they voted $60 million to take care of themselves should they get sick. They are flown out of the country to get treatment outside the country. Last year it was 40 million. So 23 and 24 put together is $100 million to cater for the treatment of senior government officials should they fall sick. That is totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. The $100 million should have been plowed into our health facilities here so that every Gambian who needs to get health treatment can get it. And every year, you increase that amount to equip our hospitals, to train our young doctors in the University of the Gambia, to allow them to specialize, and to be able to come back here and provide treatment to our Gambian citizens. That was what a responsible government should do and would do, and that's what the UDP would do when we get to power in 2026. We will not get the poor Gambian to pay for the health treatment of a UDP official outside the country whilst they sit here and they cannot afford any treatment, they cannot get anything. That's immoral. Again, another point. We have a proliferation of private clinics and hospitals in the country. It's good. We should encourage that. But we should link them to facilities which can finance them funding to do that job. Because we need the private sector. We need the private health facilities. They are doing a good job. Nobody should misunderstand what I'm saying. They are doing a very good job, and we should encourage them to continue doing that. But they should not be surviving because government officials have been provided treatment facilities in those structures, so they survive on what government taxpayer money being used to pay for treatment of few Gambian civil servants and the like. These people are living on health insurance provided by the Gambia government for a very small category of Gambians. Every Gambian should be able to use those facilities, but it should not be restricted to a small few. So we should link these hospitals with facilities. You know, these days, when you have good bankable projects, and that is the underlying word, good bankable projects. If you have good bankable projects, you can find funding for anything in this country. So if we have good bankable projects for the private clinics in this country, we will find funding for them to be able to develop and to be able to provide medical care for the Gambians. Because the public sector cannot do it all. So we need the private sector. But it should not be funded by public insurance money provided to a few Gambians. So these are areas where we should very carefully reflect on. And the UDP will sustain those private clinics, will assist them to grow and get better, but will also primarily support the public sector so that every Gambian can get the treatment that we need and to make sure that we contain pandemics. You all heard about the COVID money coming into this country. Where did it go? Into public pockets. Did it? No, it didn't. It went to private pockets. That's why nothing is happening. The COVID money that came into this country should have been able to upgrade all the health facilities in this country. It didn't. They went to procure dozens of ambulances. And they said, oh, now everybody will be able to get an ambulance to go to wherever you need, etc. Where are they? They've all broken down. Nowhere to be seen. Because of the procurement, they call it what? Tenderpreneur. Because of all the wrong tender procedures that have been taken in place in this country, which are being implemented, all those ambulances are poor second-hand ambulances which have been brought in here, which are all grounded now. Why is that? Because of corruption. That's why I say corruption should be cross-cutting in whatever we do in this country. We see it today. The just ended OIC summit. They bought apparently 100 vehicles, which became 87, for a 2-day meeting. A 2-day meeting, you buy 87 brand new high-end cars for a 2-day meeting. Does that make sense to anybody? And they tell us this cars cost in the region of $12 million for a 2-day meeting, for God's sake. Sorry? Exactly. Whilst they're doing that, the ferry is grounded for more than a month. And people have to carry it on the shoulders of, come on, we can do better than that. We are better than that in the Gambia. So why are we going through all of that? Corruption again. Corruption kills. And corruption fights back. If we do not end corruption, it will end us. Corruption is why our kids died of Aki. Because the guys who are supposed to be controlling the medicines coming in are the guys who are giving their license out to people who are importing the medication. Conflict of interest. And this was pointed out by the Gambia Competition Commission. Gambia Competition Commission underscored this. You are running a risk. I think it was in 2021 or 2022, Gambia Competition Commission pointed it out and said, you are running a risk. You are going to get into trouble because the people who own the licenses are the people who are getting the drugs into this place. And they are the people who are supposed to do the regulation. So there will be no regulation and you are going to get into trouble. But nobody listened. And when the kids died, what did they say? Oh, it's nothing more than what happens elsewhere, it's normal. Because the person who signed off those medications to come in here was the same person who was asked to come out and defend it. What will he say? Of course he will say it's okay. And the president comes out himself and he defends that. Just like when the Banjul Road saga was on and the massive corruption, you saw a whole set of ministries come out to defend a private entrepreneur instead of him coming out to defend himself. Why? Corruption again. So corruption is the theme that runs throughout this government. And we have to fight corruption. When you start fighting corruption, you'll be ready. Because they're going to come after you. Because corruption fights back. But are we tough enough to stand corruption and fight it for this country? Or are you just going to lie down and let them work all over us? UDP will not lie down. We will fight corruption, we will fight impunity, and we will bring sanity to our system. So that is a promise. As Mr. Dabo said, that is a promise. We will do that. Once we do all of that, we are going to go to what? The next level, our 5th agenda item, that is energy and digital infrastructure. Today, the Gambia, we all know what's going on. Nobody can have a decent power supply anywhere in this country. The power is on and off all the time. People are losing their appliances. People are losing valuable time in their businesses. Patients die in hospital because there is no power supply. Every sector in this country requires electricity, regular, affordable, reliable electricity. If you don't have it, your economy is doomed. If you don't have it, you will not have any investment in infrastructure, in industry particularly, because no serious industry is going to come and invest here if they don't have regular power supply. Because power is one of the key components of any industrial development. And it's a key cost factor for any industry's development. So if we don't have good, reliable, affordable power, we are going nowhere. Our hotel industry is struggling. Because when they increase the power cost for NAWEG, they increase for the hotel industry by 47 frigging percent. 47. How do you expect them to make profits? How do you expect them to work normally and get to where they need to get to? If 47% of their electricity, so the electricity is increased by 47% already. So even before you start anything, you have that liability on your back. How do you develop? And you compound that with taxation at the airport for Gambians coming in and out, tourists coming in and out, they all have to pay $20 or 20 euro, whatever it is. And all the woes that are happening in the tourist sector is killing our tourist industry. Our youth are unemployed. How many people live directly and indirectly of the tourism sector? They are in trouble. And they will continue to be in trouble if power is not available and affordable. So we're going to make power affordable to the Gambia. And you know how? Not just fossil fuels. The solar plant they've been bragging about in Jambur was negotiated by Usainu Dabo. And we can have many more of those kind of solar power stations in this country. That's clean energy, affordable energy. And what's more, when you have solar, wind, hydro power projects, everybody wants to fund them because they are clean energy projects. They do not pollute. They do not increase the greenhouse gases. They do not add to the heating of the environment and climate difficulties that we are facing today. So there is money out there for clean power projects, but they have to be good, bankable projects. Good, bankable projects, I insist on that. And we can do that. There are so many Gambians out here and abroad who can do those clean, bankable projects for us, and we will get funding for them. And I promise you, UDP will do that too. So the fossil fuel, which is being used right now, will be used less. And there will be less corruption. Because part of NAVEC's problems is when they procure the heavy fuel oil, HFO, that is a major source of corruption. So if we take that away, the corruption is reduced. Senegal next door here, they are transitioning from that heavy fuel oil to gas-powered turbines. Because all of these heavy fuel machines can be transformed easily to use gas. Senegal is producing today, 14 million cubic meters of gas in Kayar. About 26 million cubic meters of gas at Saint Louis. So the price of energy in Senegal is going to drop from about 143 CFA francs per kilowatt hour as at now to about 23 by the end of the year. That's the projection in the new government. From 153 to 23. That's about an 80% reduction in the cost of energy in Senegal. If they do, and I'm sure they will, their industries will become so much more competitive that industrial development in the Gambia is going to be in trouble. So if we don't move to provide good, cheap, affordable energy for the Gambia, industries will not come here. They will go to Senegal because power is cheaper and power is extremely important for any industrial development. So we have to think ahead, and this government is incapable of that. All they can think of is now. How do I get rich quickly? We have to fight that. And we can do better than what is happening right now. So energy can be available in the Gambia because, we have found oil offshore. Why is that oil not being tapped for all these years? What is happening there? The government is not telling us anything. We found oil, the Malo, the Jato, the Samo, all of those oil fields are there. They were sold to FAR, virtually. And when Jammeh left, the ADB brought in what we call the African Legal Support Facility to help negotiate those contracts again, to get them to be better for the Gambia. They're all gone again. But we need to be able to get that power back. We need to be able to get our oil fields to produce. Because while we are sitting here and not being told what is happening, Senegal is producing 100,000 barrels of oil in Sangomar. Sangomar is contiguous to our oil fields. So what is happening? Nobody knows. Except that FAR, the Australian company that bought the power, the oil fields, said they went into one of the oil fields, they drilled, they found traces of oil, but no oil. So where did the oil go? The government should answer that question. So if we get into those areas, we produce oil. If Senegal has oil and gas and Mauritania has oil and gas, why will the Gambia not have it? They're in the same area, the same continental shelf. If they have it, we have it. So why are we not drilling ours? If we do, we have additional resources coming to this country. But maybe it's a blessing that this government didn't do that. I hope they didn't. Because if they do, we are dead. So UDP will take care of that too. We will make sure that our oil and gas reserves, which are certainly out there, are developed for this country and for this country's development. So I'm being given time, so 10 minutes to go, so I just leave it at that and come to my final point, agricultural development. Agriculture is what is going to take us to the next level. If we develop our agricultural sector, it will be the grounds on which we will build industrial development. If we produce enough in the agricultural sector, we can eradicate poverty in this country. Not reduce poverty, eradicate poverty. We are a population of 2.5 million people, right? Every single year, we spend $200 million, not dollars, $200 million every single year to import food into this country. Essentially, rice and oil and baking flour. If we do what is called import substitution, we produce that locally, we save $200 million a year, which we'll invest elsewhere. We can produce the rice that we consume here and export more. We can produce the oil we need here and export. We can produce flour. Senegal is growing wheat and having wheat flour. But we don't need wheat flour. We can use corn flour. We can use coarse flour, rice flour. We can do all of that. So we cut our import bill by that much. And $200 million will be available to us to invest in other sectors in the country, particularly in agriculture. If we increase our productivity in the agricultural sector, currently production of rice is about 1 to 2 tons per hectare in the Gambia. 1 to 2 tons per hectare. Yet, if we bring in the proper improved seeds, like Nerika rice, developed by Africa Rice, which was WADA at the time, we can produce 8 to 10 tons of rice per hectare. That's 4 to 5 times more rice per hectare. Today, we produce about, depending on whose statistics you look at, we produce about 8 to 12% of the rice we consume here. The rest is imported. So just by increasing the productivity of the current rice fields, we go from roughly 10% to about 40–50% of rice production in the country. If we improve just the productivity, I'm not talking of the area yet, just the productivity, we go from 1 to 2 tons per hectare, we move to 8 to 10 tons per hectare with proper procedures, we increase our rice production 5-fold. That alone will allow us to have about 40 to 50% of our rice consumption needs catered for from our current rice production. Now, what if we move from rain-fed agriculture to year-round agriculture? Because we developed the River Gambia to provide water for those rice fields. We developed the right structures for those rice fields. We produce water for irrigation for those rice fields where it's needed. So instead of farming once a year, we'll farm 3 or 4 times in the year, or rather harvest 3 or 4 times in the year. So you see where I'm getting? Just by increasing productivity, we increase our rice production by 40 to 50%. So meaning we have only half of the consumption needs that have to be imported. So if we increase the area, the production in that area, sorry, that's Mr. Dabo calling me, just a second. And they have some things to do which is preventing him from coming right now. So they had promised to come and attend this session, but he's late because he's dealing with those issues as well, which are equally important. Still part of fighting the corruption, the cross-cutting issue. So when he finishes, he said he'll be here. He hopes that he'll be able to get here before we wrap up. Okay? So he asked me to apologize to the student wing and all those here present. Okay? So to quickly wrap up on what I was saying, if we increase our productivity and we farm 3 to 4 crops a year, we are almost there with our rice needs. And if we extend the areas under cultivation, not only we will meet our rice needs, but we can export. So we can bring in more foreign exchange. But we will not export just the raw rice, we will process it, add value to it, and use the entire value chain of the rice production. From the seeds, we'll have people selling those improved seeds who will make money. We'll have people moving to the farms, transporters who will make money. We'll have people in the farms who are farming there who will make money. When it's done, people who do the processing of the rice, milling it to bag it, etc. All those people will make more money, and it goes transported to the stores and the hotels, etc. They make more money. So we have a lot more people in the value chain. So we have more people employed on the rice cultivation alone. And all of these people are going to pay taxes. All of these people are going to get money into state coffers. So consequently, our taxes will fall. Today they are taxing us into poverty. The taxes are going up constantly, we're all getting poor. So if you increase the number of people paying tax, you widen the tax base, and the taxes drop. We can do that too. So this is just for rice production, but the same applies to horticulture, to poultry production, to animal husbandry, to flower cultivation. Any sector of agricultural sector you think about, we can add so much value, and we can take advantage of the value chain in all of those areas. So we can produce so much more, and we will build industries on top of that. Because then we build industries to process our fruits into juices, because we tax dual brew out of existence. We don't have it. We're importing poor quality drinks from elsewhere. We can produce them here using our mangoes, our oranges, our kaba. There was a girl in Senegambia called Kaba Girl, I don't know where she is, who was doing that. We have all of those people. We can encourage them to produce, and we export. We have juices produced here. We can make jam from cashew nuts, from mangoes, etc. Today the cashew nuts, we export only the cashew nuts. The fruits are thrown away or be made into alcohol. Fine. But we can also do other things with it. So that's the processing industry we were going to develop agriculture in the agricultural sector, the UDP. So we will have all of those things. And every one of those areas will add value. And what we do, that will also spur development in the tourism sector, in the hotel industry, in the restaurant businesses, in the supermarkets, because we will supply our hotels with rice, with vegetables, with meat, with fish, etc. I've not even talked about the fishing sector yet. I don't have time for that. My time is almost over. But we can do all of that. We can supply our supermarkets. So we can have abattoirs also developed, which are in the value chain. People working in those abattoirs are going to pay money to government taxes, etc. We have all of those. We have supermarkets. This can be locally owned indigenous supermarkets now, because you don't have Gambians in the distribution sector anymore, or very rare. So we can bring in more people. We keep the ones who are there. It's important. Because the private sector must thrive. And the private sector cannot be just Gambian. It is Gambian and non-Gambian. We encourage investment from outside, but we make sure that the Gambians also get into the sector. And that competition is good for everybody. Prices will fall again. So agriculture is the sector that's going to get out of poverty. And I conclude by saying that the farmer in CRR, in URR, or wherever, who has 1 hectare, just 1 hectare of rice field, who uses Nerika to produce 8 to 10 tons of rice per harvest, and who in 3 harvests, no, I'm talking about 4, just 3 harvests, will produce 30 tons of rice a year on 1 hectare. Because we give them implements, we give them improved seeds, etc., to start with, and food program fertilizers. That farmer or that farming family that produces 30 tons of rice on its rice field is out of poverty. Because every ton of rice is 20 bags or 50 kilos. So the person who produces 30 tons, he has 60 bags of rice. 60 bags of rice. So what am I talking about? 10 tons per hectare, 3 times a year, that's 30 tons, 60 bags, yeah. If 600, yes, sorry, yeah. So if that person sells a bag of rice just for $1,000, just 1,000, not 2,250 as we have right now. If that farmer sells his bag of rice for $1,000, he has $600,000 per year. Somebody who barely gets 50,000 from his rice fields today gets $600,000 per year. Next year, that guy will farm 3, 4, 5 hectares. He'll go look for more farms, and we will start exporting. So a farmer who can get $600,000 from his rice field a year is lifted out of poverty. And that's what agricultural development will do for us. The farmers should not be poor. Everywhere else, farmers are rich. And we can replicate that here. We need to give them a head start. Provide equipment, provide fertilizers, provide improved seeds, etc., for a start. And then they will fly on their own. So these are the sort of areas that the UDP is looking at. These are the things we're saying we will do for the Gambia in 2027 after we win in 2026. So this is where we want to go. I can continue on this for another hour, developing other areas, but of course time doesn't allow me. So I'll say to you all, thank you very much for this opportunity. And my final point is, it's great to see this sort of event happening with the youth, because you are the future of this country. It's just like banal saying that, but we have to say it. Because you can sit back and say, oh, I'm not into politics. Somebody else will decide for you. And most probably it's going to be somebody mediocre who's going to decide for you. You better get up and take care of your own lives. Get into politics, because politics is everybody's business, and everybody's business is politics. So make it your business and take the country forward. Thank you very much.